Okay, so this is the next installment in my series. I've been doing a number of chart readings, brief chart readings of notorious people. I previously have done Michael Aquino and Ghislaine Maxwell, and today I will be dealing with Jeffrey Epstein. Now, this is a not intended to explore absolutely everything about his chart. I'm going to hit the most significant stuff essentially, but this would be several hours if I were to go over everything. So I'm also going to do another entry on his death chart, and that is, of course, in question. Many people think that he is not dead. Many people think that his death was faked, or some people believe that he was killed by somebody and not suicided. Rather, he was suicided and did not kill himself. There's definitely evidence in that chart to say a few things, which I will get to later. But first, we're going to deal with his birth and his natal chart. All right. So he was born on Tuesday, January 20th, 1953, in Brooklyn, New York, at 6:15 a.m. Now, this gives us Libra Sun. He has this gives an Aquarius Sun, a Moon in Aries, and a ascendant in the 13th degree of Capricorn. So first dealing with the ascendant, and let's first deal with his heliacal rising star. So the heliacal rising star is the star that rises with the sun as of the time of birth, and the heliacal rising star has the energy of Horus, according to the Egyptians, and Horus is the rising god. So it has all the implications of the rising god. Epstein's heliacal rising star is not very well known. It's a star called Alcumen, and it signifies attacks that wound. Now, it's certainly possible that Epstein underwent some sort of attacks as a child that wounded him, as his behavior later in life and maybe in his early life would tend to indicate that he um, may have been repeating a series of acts upon others that were done upon himself. We can only speculate about that. But we can also look at his chart and we find that Chiron was actually quite close to the ascendant on his birth in the 16th degree. And Chiron was actually um, conjoined with the fixed star Vega. Now, I don't use Chiron unless there's a good reason, generally in charts, because it's not one of the visible objects that are in traditional astrology. But in the case of Epstein, when we add this to Vega, which is, as I said, this was conjunct his ascendant, which is different than heliacal rising, um, we get one of the most beautiful stars and most important stars in the sky. Extremely positive. Vega has the energy of the ancient prophet and mystery cult originator Orpheus. Orpheus was essentially in the tradition, in the Bacchic tradition primarily. He was also, he may have become a solar worshiper, worshiper of Apollo later in his life. But he's, of course, well known for the lyre, his incredibly beautiful songs, which had the ability to lull monsters into a state of hypnosis, and also for his underworld journeys that he undertook to attempt to save something that was important to him, his wife, Orpheus, in the case of Orpheus. In the case of Epstein, this may have been some sort of obsession to go into the underworld to try and find something that he had lost. Um, and when we add Chiron into this, now Chiron is traditionally, among modern astrologers, equated with the wounded healer. And this, again, we have this wound idea coming with the lack of rising alcumin, and also with Chiron. But Chiron is mythically also linked to the, shall we say, sex with minors. The Centaur, the Centaur, was notorious for that sort of activity. So this is sort of sets up a bit of a picture of Epstein potentially having been wounded early and acting upon that. That is, of course, no excuse for people who do act out these things, but it would simply explain this somewhat. Now, the decan, the 10-degree area in which the ascendant was, in Jeffrey Epstein's case, is ruled by, well, it's Capricorn, so it's ruled by Saturn. But the specific decan or 10-degree section is ruled by Mars and by Venus. And this is the decan of the temple builder. This is where we have the martial energy to create a temple or a monument to something, a great power, a great established power. Capricorn is a place of um, rules and our uh, buried and embedded power structure. So, and it also harkens to ancient things, things in our deep past. So it's also ruled by Venus, this decan, which gives the individual a vision of something, a attempting to make something beautiful as a monument to one's beliefs and one's belief in a power structure. So the Venusian aspect also gives us a degree of hedonism, and this Venus energy in Capricorn tends to indicate once one knows the rules, one can then bend or break the rules. So also in Capricorn, in the 22nd degree, is Mercury in his chart, and this is Mercury in Capricorn in the third decan, which is actually a Mercury Sun ruled decan. So Mercury is in his decan in his chart. This is the area of the CEO, the person who sits behind the big chair of power. This is a place of where the dictates issued here have great weight, and it is Mercury. So this is that character who is like the CEO, the business leader, the person who is often a proxy for somebody else who actually wields power. But this is the person who sits behind the desk that makes the proclamations. So this is sort of a steward, and of course Epstein was the proxy for the Rothschilds. So very much a mercurial role there. So next, let's look at his the ruler of the ascendant in this chart. So again, this is Capricorn is the rising sign. So we want to look for Saturn, and this chart has Saturn in the 10th house. That's whole sign. And Saturn's in I believe, the 28th degree of Libra, and it's fairly closely conjunct to Neptune. So Saturn and Neptune conjunctions are a transgression of rules. This is where we also find the rules of occultism, the rules of spycraft, the rules of acting and of theater. How do we portray something to the world? Neptune in the 10th house is a common aspect to have in actors' charts and in spies' charts. Um, so, and also of note, we're still in the throes of a Neptune and Saturn conjunction, which just happened recently in the first degree of Aries. And under that conjunction, we've actually seen a great deal more attention paid to Epstein and a lot of the files released about Epstein during this period of conjunction. So, Saturn in Libra gives us a very strong Saturn. This is Saturn in his exaltation. Um, Libra is about harmonizing and diplomacy, where we have our uh, where we try to harmonize into the world, and this is the sign in which Venus rules and Saturn is exalted. So this is where we can make rules, and we can also put a pretty face on those rules to make it appear that we are being just and we're being considerate of other people's feelings. But we can also hide a lot behind this Venusian appearance. And you add Neptune to that too, and it gives like a swirling turgidity about it, where you don't really know what's going on, what rules are really being made, and why. So it's a great way to hide what you're doing. This is in the last decan of Libra, which Libra again is ruled by Venus, but this section is ruled by Jupiter and Mercury. This is a decan where we try and find balance, where we try and uh, create a life where we're able to go off balance and rediscover our balance. Uh, One of the archetypes of this is the drunken master, who has who is able to maintain an incredible level um, of acumen again um, when inebriated. Um, so this decan often has images of inebriation and great partying and hedonism, but still maintaining a center of gravity during the times of what appear to be um, this. It's hedonism basically. So the other thing we can say about this is that Neptune is sitting pretty much right on the fixed star um, Spica, and Spica is related to the Virgin, the Kore, which is one of the most powerful archetypes in the zodiac, which seems contradictory, of course, to what we've just talked about, but it's not. The Kore is the ultimate in sexual energy, the highest point of sexual energy, and one of probably the most powerful archetype. Um, the symbol of this is the Virgin holding a sheaf of wheat, which indicates the ability for the native to see um, the secrets of fertility, the secrets of farming, the secrets that bring us a abundant harvest versus the withering away and dying of things. Because this is Neptune here, this is somebody who wants to see into the world of the occult, into the world that's hidden, and find its mysteries. Placing Saturn there gives it a focus on things that are old, things that are ancient, and trying to recover those ideas. So in his 11th house is actually his midheaven. So in whole sign astrology, we then import some of these um, significations of the 10th house into the 11th house. And the 11th house is a house of our friends and our allies and our social networks. It's our congregation if we are a Jupiterian priest. This is where we go to preach to our choir. We're going to tend to find people who are friendly to the things that we're preaching. So his midheaven is in the 6th degree of Scorpio, which is ruled by Mars, and decanically speaking, it's ruled again by Mars doubly. So this is not only a Mars ruled territory, the decan is doubly ruled by Mars. It's a decan about intense desire and getting what one desires, and it's got a very Plutonian sense in which this Mars is going to get what he wants, no matter how he has to do it or what it takes. And it also questions whether this is going to actually make the person happy. So you get a lot of the energy of we're going to get what we want, and it'll never be enough. So there's a little bit of this sense of acquisitiveness and also misery and never having enough. And we find Jupiter right across the zodiac from his rulership, or excuse me, from the midheaven right on the IC in Taurus. So this is as somebody who has an expansive childhood. This is the 5th house is the house of childhood and also of sex and our creation. So this you put Jupiter in the 5th house, and you get big dreams, big aspirations in that area of the life's work. The and it's Taurus, so we've got a definite focus on the finances, on the material objects, and the relationship with the goddesses, because this is Taurus is ruled by both goddesses. We have the moon in exaltation and Venus in rulership, and they're not there in his chart, but they're essentially that's the rulership of the 5th house here. Epstein's sun is in the 1st degree of Aquarius on a fixed star called Albiero, which is in the Andromeda constellation. It's the beak of the swan. And this constellation has a lot to do with the world egg, which brings us back to Orpheus, who was notorious for this concept of the world egg. This is the god Phanius or Protagonus, the god who is self-generating, who came before the other gods. So this is somebody who has potentially the aspiration to create his own world, his own the starting of. So we can also say that this is. If you look at the Bach Saga, you'll see that the Bach Saga claims that the gods were not, in fact, gods. They were flesh and blood, but they were the initiators of a hierarchical procreation scheme, which is incredibly appropriate for our Jeffrey Epstein, who planned to impregnate 1,000 women in order to create a line of Epstein's, essentially. So he was planning on becoming the Bach or the Lemminkainen of an entire Epstein dynasty. So I'm rapidly running out of time. I'll just go over his moon, fourth house moon in Aries. That's a very Mars-oriented moon, very inspired to physical action, very inflamed, um, potentially very lustful, very lustful of life, and very active in the world, very motivated. To This decan is often um, symbolized by the axe, which can be used to civilize, or it can be used to cut one's enemy's head off. Very motivated to create a civilization, or to cut through and make one's own civilization or one's own legacy. And it's a fourth house, so we are talking about home life. So he probably had a very active home life as a child. According to the Placidus house delineations, the moon would be in the third in its house joy. And this is where the goddess has the basically, she sends out her dictates as to how the goddess's realm is going to be um, implemented to the rest of the night sect. When we have a moon in Aries, we also think of Demeter, who is known to have placed children into a fire in order to burn off their mortality and give them an aspect that is, in fact, immortal. Um, so, just a couple more things. He had a conjoined Mars and Venus in Pisces in the second decan. This is the decan of the guru, the decan of the person who casts a net to catch souls. And it's a place of where, when it's functional, the material world and the spiritual world can become united here, um, and very highly aspirational. This Venus is in exaltation. Again, this is useful for somebody who, for them to get away with things, because the Venus looks fairly innocent here. And Mars has got triplicity. So that's what I'm going to say about his chart for now. There's a lot more I could say again, but this is, I'm limited here. I'm not going to do any more than that. And next video, I'm going to talk about his death chart.